welcome to this edition of Northwest Newsweek. The search for 26-year-old Alyssa Turnbull continues. She was last seen in the Nipigon area back in March. On Monday, a large search team consisting of several specialty units were at Nipigon's wastewater treatment plant continuing the search. That's just 3 days after a substantial reward for information was offered. Adam Riley has details.
A large contingent of police vehicles and investigators arrived shortly after 8 o'clock Monday morning and have been searching the grounds and facility of the Nipigon sewage treatment plant, including the settling ponds. Some officers on scene were seen wearing hazmat-type suits, and pumper trucks from GFL were also on site. Police officials have confirmed that they are connected to the search operation. Initially, the OPP couldn't confirm if the search was connected to any tips they had received following last month's offer of a $50,000 reward. However, spokesperson Sergeant Mike Golding later confirmed that the search was pre-scheduled. As well, due to the hazardous nature of the search zone, the OPP have pulled in some specialty units to assist with the search, which could take up to 6 to 7 days.
They're searching the water site itself. We have some specialty teams in here that are participating in this evidence search. So it's the USERT team, which is our urban search and rescue, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive response team. We have our Northwest emergency response team as well as our CIB, the criminal investigation branch. So they're all participating as part of a group effort in searching this facility.
26-year-old Alyssa Turnbull was last seen in the Nipigon area in March, and her family members have said they fear for the worst. OPP have conducted numerous searches in the Nipigon area over the past 6 months without any significant breaks in the case. However, Golding did reveal where the OPP is at as far as the number of tips they've received since offering the reward on October 30th.
You know, we're not in the habit of giving out exact numbers, obviously, but we have had numerous tips, and what we do is we assign those to detectives, and they're followed up. Every single one is followed up.
Nipigon Mayor Richard Harvey is reassuring residents that there is no cause for concern and is urging people to give the OPP the space they need.
We've been given no indication whatsoever that there is any concern about heightened safety in town. So we just want to encourage people to just allow the OPP to do their investigation and to wait and see what the outcomes are.
Adam Riley, Northwest Newsweek.
Thunder Bay's 2 MPPs are reacting to Ontario's 2020 budget, which was unveiled Thursday. It contains record spending as the government adds billions of dollars to its pandemic recovery plan, leading to a $38.5 billion deficit. But Michael Gravel and Judith Monteith-Farrell say despite all that money that's being spent, key sectors are still being left out. Avery McRae has more.
Local MPPs Judith Monteith-Farrell of the New Democratic Party and Michael Gravel of the Liberal Party were both left disappointed with Ontario's budget for 2020. The record $187 billion budget addressed key areas, much of which revolving around COVID-19 related costs, but the MPPs felt key areas were not addressed. No significant money was put aside for education, including funds to address smaller class sizes, particularly in elementary schools. The state of long-term care homes has also been magnified during the pandemic, and it too slipped through the budget's cracks.
No funding at all in the budget, which was startling to me. Certainly no immediate funding to put in place to even increase the moving forward on the construction of more long-term care facilities.
The problem is that we know it requires more staff. And we can do that right away. It's not something that we need to consult on. That's a no-brainer. We had to call in the military to actually provide care. And they are calling in the Red Cross, they're calling in other resources, and that's not a permanent solution.
Few areas have been impacted more during the pandemic than the tourism industry, with much of northwestern Ontario feeling the burden. The budget has included a 20% tax credit for those who travel within Ontario to help encourage tourism during the pandemic, but Monteith-Farrell was hoping for more of a direct help for the industry.
Some of those other things might help them, but what we heard at committee all over the summer is those businesses were in crisis, and that's a significant economic driver here in Northern Ontario.
I know that they have to work with the tourism sector to see how that can work, and I also know that the tourism sector would be grateful to have a very direct form of investment as well. That might be far more helpful, but that was at least one part of the budget that intrigued me and I thought is worth moving forward on.
One decision both MPPs can agree on is the $6 billion the Ford government set aside in the budget for unforeseen pandemic-related costs. With the future of the second wave unknown, the MPPs are hopeful that money eventually goes towards populations who need it most. Avery McRae, TBT News.
A tiny school in a remote part of northwestern Ontario is going to be replaced. Savant Lake Public School is located on Highway 599, about halfway between Ignace and Pickle Lake. The existing schoolhouse currently has just 8 students from kindergarten to grade 8. The Ford government announced funding this week to build a new modern school by September 2023. Officials with the Keewatin Patricia District School Board are welcoming the news and say the estimated price tag for the project is $4 million. And as of Friday, there are 4 active COVID-19 cases in the Northwestern Health Unit's catchment area, 1 in the Kenora area and 3 in the Sioux Lookout area. Meanwhile, the medical officer of health there has growing concerns about the recent spike in cases in Manitoba, prompting her to strongly advise against visiting there. Closing the border is not something that Dr. Kit Young-Hoon could mandate, but she says they've been closely monitoring the situation to the west. Winnipeg is being deemed a red zone, with the rest of the province listed as orange or a restricted level. Young-Hoon has some advice for those who do travel to Manitoba and who they should try their best to avoid when returning.
They need to be considering staying home as much as they possibly can and avoiding interactions with others as much as they can during those 14 days. We're also aware that there's certain populations that are at higher risk. So these are individuals who are over the age of 60, have other chronic conditions, and are immunocompromised.
Young-Hoon advises those with less serious medical appointments in Winnipeg to consider delaying them until a safer time. A significant drug bust for Dryden OPP this week. Officers executed a warrant on Wednesday and managed to confiscate a large quantity of cannabis plants and firearms. Officers were initially called to a De Norwick residence to investigate an assault and threats, and as a result, seized a number of firearms. Officers were then alerted to a large quantity of cannabis plants, which were also seized. A 48-year-old De Norwick man was arrested and charged under the Cannabis Act. He was later released to appear in court next month, and Constable Jim Davis says 406 plants were located, which is well above the allowable limit.
It's a pretty significant amount of cannabis, and I know that with the new legislation where you're allowed to have 4 plants for personal use, or there's some regulations, of course, over medical marijuana or the growing of medical marijuana. But that didn't fit the criteria for what we located.
Meanwhile, OPP are continuing to investigate a fire in De Norwick that closed Highway 17 last night, very near to where the cannabis was seized. OPP are remaining very tight-lipped about that investigation. As the water crisis in Neskantaga continues on, 2 members from the community made their way to Toronto this week to try and incite action from the Ford government. Keewatin MPP Sol Mamakwa hosted Neskantaga members Lawrence Sackany and Elder Alex Munoz, who were at Queen's Park for a multi-day sit-in at the legislature. The majority of Neskantaga's 230 residents were evacuated after running water was shut off due to an oily sheen in the community's water reservoir. Neskantaga has been under a boil water advisory since 1995. During a media event at Queen's Park this week, Mamakwa was joined by Sackany and Munoz. The Zoom call was also joined by Neskantaga Chief Chris Munoz, alongside some of the community members that were part of the evacuation to Thunder Bay.
Water is such a basic thing. Water is such a basic necessity. And Neskantaga has had no water for over a quarter of a century. We're here to have equitable access to clean drinking water for these families, for this community. So
they deserve clean water. All the children back in Neskantaga deserve clean water.
Chief Munoz also provided an update saying the Canadian Rangers and contractors were on the ground in Neskantaga, but there is still no timetable for the return of the evacuees to their community. Meanwhile, officials with the Ford government say provincial staff are helping resolve the water crisis in Neskantaga, even though it is a federal responsibility. Environment Minister Jeff Urick says Ontario clean water technicians were in the community this week. The update came in response to a question by Sol Mamakwa at Queen's Park.
Neskantaga has been without safe tap water since February 1995, over a quarter of a century. We need gold standard on this. Why is this government, why is Ontario ignoring and not helping Neskantaga through this crisis?
2 days ago, a team from the Ontario Clean Water Agency flew into the community after receiving an invitation from the chief. They have started the commission of the water plant and assessment of the water system infrastructure. They will conduct a 14-day stress test for the plant and provide high-level recommendations for longer-term system sustainability focused on removing the boil water advisory that has been in place, as the member opposite mentioned, since the 90s. We remain committed to helping ensure water infrastructure in the community is well maintained and in place for future needs. Mr. Speaker, I'm with the member opposite. I call upon the federal government to step up and take care of the promise to remove boil water advisories across the entire First Nation communities. Step up with the money and make this happen, Mr. Speaker.
Coming up after the break, we hear from those who stayed behind in Neskantaga to keep watch over the community. And when Neskantaga First Nation evacuated their reserve due to the ongoing clean water crisis, 24 members stayed behind to take care of the community. The group are living with no running water while they complete daily tasks around town for their members who have evacuated to Thunder Bay. Troy Charles has their story.
With the majority of their residents evacuated to Thunder Bay, 24 members of Neskantaga First Nation have a lot of work ahead of them to ensure the community remains intact. The members each have around 7 to 8 houses they are responsible for, which they check in on daily. Among their tasks are making sure pipes don't freeze, constant flushing of backed up sewer lines, packing away canvas canoes, and feeding the many res dogs who are lonely and missing their usual human friends. Neskantaga Chief Chris Munias is proud of his members who have remained.
Their passion to keep the community safe, to make sure that the houses are looked after, to make sure even our furry friends are looked after. And that motivates me. That makes me want to keep on fighting and addressing the issues that are here in the community.
Lawrence Sackany showed us his current living conditions while there is no running water. A bathtub overflowing with empty water jugs and a bucket that he stands in to have some resemblance of a shower. Wayne Munias is a community advisor, and he explains the Group of 24's motivation for staying behind.
It's a very difficult situation that our community is in. We remain in the community because we want to try to help our community as best we can, while our leadership is trying to advocate for us to try to get some resolution and some movement on the issue that we're facing.
With the water now being shut off for over a week, the community members that remain have resorted to coming down to the lake, filling up jugs of water to then be taken back to their homes to be used to help flush the toilet and other sanitary reasons. One member we spoke to said he has to come down to the lake about 3 or 4 times a day. How does that make you feel, having to come down to the lake and collect your water like this?
Yeah, it's hard and disappointing to do that now, today. It's really hard because for me, I'm getting older, and you know, I'm not 100% to I'm a diabetic.
The 24 members seem to be in for more tough days, as Chief Munias says no evacuated residents will return to Niskandiga until their demands for a safe, clean water supply are met. Troy Charles, TBT News.
The Township of Red Rock may be in trouble after council was presented with a review of municipal assets and operational costs on Monday. Some infrastructure needs upgrading, but service and tax income aren't balancing out those costs. But as Adam Riley explains, there are some opportunities for the community to balance itself out.
We will not ignore any of this, I'll tell you right now. We have to work with it.
The municipality of Red Rock will spend the next little while having a serious look in the mirror following a grim third-party review of municipal assets and operations. The review, conducted by Alberta-based Sage Analytics, was presented to council in full Monday evening. In it, the town received an F grade in all asset categories. Mayor Gary Nelson says some of the numbers do paint a rough picture for the town, but he doesn't believe the community has failed.
We're losing a lot of money in recreation, around over $300,000 a year. And we're losing over $300,000 a year just on this place here, this plant of building down here. You know, I don't think there's anybody failed in Red Rock. I know they come up with some numbers and give Red Rock some low numbers and that, but I don't know. I'd like to see what they come up with, say, in any other North Shore towns.
The review also targeted the town's water and sewer services, which found both operate in a deficit position, and recommended a rate increase. The move would allow the town to pay for itself as opposed to having to rely on government grants for infrastructure upgrades like the ongoing sewage treatment plant. However, Nelson says for a community the size of Red Rock, it isn't that easy.
I can't see it being possible in a town with no industry. A place that's got a pulp and paper mill or some kind of an industry in the town, yeah. Because I know when this Norampak mill was running, we were getting close to $2 million a year from Norampak. But when you don't have any of that stuff in town, so you've got to go out and get it, you can do it yourself, you've got to rely on the government grants.
Other recommendations include creating new positions within the town with a focus on finance and operations, and collaborating with other nearby communities to decrease costs for various services, and establish a regional economic development office. As well, the firm is recommending an increase in residential taxes. However, Nelson has some reservations on that.
But we got to stop and think too. We have a lot of retired people in this town that are on the budget. So we will also look at that we don't want to hurt anybody.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
An inquest has been announced for later this month into the underground death of a man at Barrick Gold's Hemlo mine near Marathon. 59-year-old Eulagio Gutierrez was killed in November of 2017. According to reports at the time, it was an industrial accident which involved Gutierrez being struck and killed by a piece of mobile equipment. The inquest jury will examine the circumstances of what happened and would then make recommendations aimed at preventing similar deaths. The inquest will be held in Thunder Bay using video conferencing due to COVID-19 and will be live streamed on YouTube. It's expected to last 4 days with 5 witnesses being called. This summer may have felt like a particularly bad forest fire season, but the overall numbers when compared to years past don't tell the same story. Many residents in the Northwest did feel the impact of the fire season, with most notable blazes occurring around Red Lake and Edmonton First Nation, which of course caused temporary evacuations of both those communities. Chris Marchand is with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry and gives some perspective on this region's forest fire numbers compared to years past.
The 10-year average number of fires that you would see in Ontario over a season would be about 870. This year, we've seen 607 wildland fires province-wide. In the Northwest region, we had 366 fires, which burned a total of 13,791 hectares. The Northeast had 241 fires, which burnt a total of 1,669 hectares. So certainly we had the lion's share of land affected.
Marchand says of those 366 fires, over 70% of them were caused by lightning strikes, with the other 30% caused by humans. When we come back, an update on Greenstone Gold's Hard Rock project, which is continuing despite the pandemic and a legal situation between its ownership group. Late last month, officials with Greenstone Gold Mines provided a project update to council and the community. The project to create an open pit mine south of Geraldton is expected to bring hundreds of new jobs to the community and bolster the economy. And while there have been some issues that have cropped up in addition to COVID-19, leadership in the community are still optimistic of the future. Adam Riley reports.
We know the price of gold is definitely, it's right up there, so it makes it very encouraging to see.
There is a promising outlook on the horizon in the Greenstone area regarding Greenstone Gold Mine's proposed Hard Rock project. The open pit mine has been under development for the better part of a decade now, but Mayor Renal Beaulieu is feeling optimistic following a presentation to council by the company last month. He says much of the needed permits and formalities have been signed, accepted, or cleared.
They have all their agreements in place with our First Nation communities. They are also have bought out all the properties that had to be bought out in the Geraldton area and the Greenstone area. So to me, this whole project is definitely more and more becoming more exciting.
However, for much of the year, a legal case between the partners involved with the mine has been hovering over the project. Centerra Gold filed a statement of claim against Premier Gold Mines late last year. The claim seeks a declaration that the 2019 Hard Rock Project update submitted by Greenstone Gold should not be considered a feasibility study. Beaulieu says the presentation to council did provide some information on that situation, but he remains positive despite the legal case and the ongoing global pandemic.
They're still waiting for the court case to be settled, which, as you know, the talk was January. So, but you know, even with all that being said, as when they were presenting, you know, things are still moving along. There's drilling still going on in Hard Rock, Little Long Lac. So there's still work, you know, happening.
Beaulieu notes there is still much to be done, as several key assets, including Highway 11 and a Hydro One substation, need to be moved to allow the mine to go into full operation. There is a work camp to house workers that also needs to be built, but Beaulieu says that will be a temporary measure until more housing in the municipality can be constructed.
Eventually, the mine's objective is that they want to see people living locally here in Greenstone, and that's a big plus for all of us.
Adam Riley, TBT News.
Well, much of the recent focus on Neskantaga has been on the water crisis. There are also ongoing concerns regarding the consultation process for proposed roads to the Ring of Fire. The need for the roadway is due to multiple factors, including both the shortening of the winter road season and providing access to the rich mining area. Martin Falls and Webequie are leading the process for the new roads. However, since the pandemic hit, it's been difficult to hold public information sessions despite the need for more consultation. This week, Kiiwetinoong MPP Sol Mamakwa brought the concerns held by Neskantaga Chief Chris Munoz all the way to Queen's Park.
Neskantaga told this government in September that it could not engage in the process in a meaningful way because of the pandemic. Now they're expected to consult in the middle of a public health crisis. Speaker, why is this process proceeding without Neskantaga?
Last year, our government signed a historic agreement with the communities of Webequie and Martin Falls with respect to that road leading into the Ring of Fire. We continue having ongoing negotiations and conversations with the First Nation communities around the Ring of Fire, and we'll continue to make sure that we consult with all of the communities that are involved.
And that's all for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.